Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the BA Zone's pre-show. We have about 7 minutes to go before it's the show tonight. Tonight's show, we're going to be talking about training the trainer. This is going to be, sort of a busy one. We've been involved in a lot of these train the trainers, train the users, internally and externally with customers that have licensed software where we were working. So, a lot of people will say, BAs don't do that. Don't get involved with that. Don't listen to them. Poo poo that. Don't listen to them. Everything that anybody ever tells you or asks you to do, you should just do because they're paying you to learn how to do this. So it's sort of like a great thing, and you get a lot of feedback, and you find different ways to do your business analyst job better. So definitely just go for it if somebody asks you to do those type of things. Training the trainer. So hope everybody's doing well this evening. Yesterday was Earth Day, sort of a reminder of our relationship with this planet that we live on. And as you can see, if you can see, I have my coral shirt on, save the coral reefs. They sort of look like lungs because guess what? We all need water, and seawater to breathe and live. So everything gets recycled up and everything. So in honor of that, I'm wearing Earth Day. In honor of Earth Day, I'm wearing my Earth Day t-shirt. When I was younger, I don't know if anybody out there did this, but during Arbor Day, which was another sort of like, I guess before Earth Day, we always planted trees. We planted trees at the school. The school planted a tree, and everybody gathered around. And I mean, my dad would plant trees on Arbor Day. So Earth Day, go out, plant something. Put your toes in the grass and just be aware. Sometimes we just live inside. We're all taking vitamin D supplements because we're not outside enough. But it was kind of a nice thing to do. I don't know if anybody else ever did that out there, if they remember doing that, but it was a cool thing. So again, we're going to be going in 5 minutes, and we're going to be talking about training the trainer. So it'd be interesting to know if any of you guys have ever been a trainer or were involved in working a training program. And there's a lot of funny stories of what could potentially go wrong. So we'd love to hear from you on anything. What went wrong, or have you ever participated in a training that was just awful? It was just terrible. What stands out in your mind about that particular episode, and what would you do differently? Besides calling in sick for that day, if you could redo all of that. So plenty of stories, I'm sure, to go around out there. So I was waiting for you guys to come on. I was sort of bored, and I was looking over here in my library, and I just sort of happened to pick up the Sears and Roebuck catalog from the fall of 1900. See the kind of the things that kind of, just tickle me. They just make me kind of laugh, right? So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this product that's a bit suspect. It's called the Heidelberg Electric Belt. That's right. You heard it first, the electric belt. And looking at it, it sort of looks like some sort of chastity belt, but no, that's not what it's for. It's for headaches, backaches, and weak nerve pains. So you send an electric volt through your body, and there's all different kinds. I don't know if you can, see from there. There you go. So there's all these different sort of belts. Again, no judgment here, from 1900, and you could be pain free, for $8 with these Heidelberg electric belts in 1900. These belts in 1900, and I guess you would do this in private, because wearing this out, would be. I'd be just a little worried with an electric belt from the 1900s. I don't know. Does it come with special instructions? Sort of. Don't get near the sink or anything like that. But for $8, you could be pain free. There's a trial offer. They even had trial offers back then. So if none of that works, obviously, if your Heidelberg belt gets you into trouble, you can also, for a mere $9, buy a blue Vermont marble tombstone, you know, right over here, right over here. So that's what we do back in 1900. I don't know about you, but I used to get, you might be too young for this. We used to get the Sears catalog, and every winter look through it to see what kind of, Christmas things we would buy. But it just cracks me up, you're looking through all of that older stuff. So that's just a little fun stuff to talk about while we're waiting. 2 minutes to go before we start our show. Again, it's going to be on Train the Trainer. We've all had experiences with training programs or having to give training to someone and all of the things that can go wrong. And hopefully we're going to get you through and show you how to create a program that'll be a successful delivery of the training, so that when you do go live, and we're going to be talking about it as if you had a software, a software. Kathleen's testing all our stuff at the bottom here if you're watching. So if you ever had an application that was created, a software application that was created, stay out of the tub. John, you're so funny with the Heidelberg electric belt. Stay out of the tub. You got that right. Or just casually drop it in if you if you want to get rid of somebody. But so we're going to be talking about training the trainer and working out that program so that it's successful, so your users don't freak out when they actually go live with the software. And guess what? It is 8:00 and it is time to go live. Welcome everybody from all walks and wherever you're tuning in from. Tonight, as I just said, we're going to be talking about creating the Train the Trainer program. And about 95% of what we're going to be talking about is also transferable to how you would train the users. So when you're creating the Train the Trainer program, you're actually creating the user program as well. So it's a win-win show. So please stick around and invite your friends and coworkers, and everyone is welcome. And if you have any questions or comments during the show, feel free and jump right in. Again, my name is Marianne Morrison, and Kathleen Sinnen is behind the curtain handling all things technical. And together we are the BA Zone. So make yourself comfortable, relax, open your mind, take a deep breath while Kathleen plays our intro. Kathleen? Okay, so the concept of train the trainer. So it's really about a process of training internal users, who are often identified as the super users of an application, to train other users. You may be selecting these trainers, or if you're working with an outside client, somebody may be selecting them for you. As BAs, we're often tasked with creating train the trainer programs and providing them with the initial training materials, because we're so close to it, because we've done the requirements and we understand how everything works. So now over time, these trainers will adapt the training material to their own styles. But initially, we're usually doing the trainers, and the training program we set up is often the one that the trainers will actually use with a few modifications to train the actual users. Now, from past experience, depending on the complexity of the application, in our experience, it can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months to really have a user become proficient in using an application. And without training, you can almost double that time frame. And unfortunately, a lot of companies sort of just throw software out there with an online tutorial. And that's okay if you're maybe talking about applications that are used in a broad sense, over the web. But when you're talking about companies and you're having users who need to work this application, it's a much better thing to provide that training. And training is a key to a successful launch of new software or ongoing enhancements to an existing piece of software that's out there. Now, you could provide this training using an outside vendor. If you were buying an application, a lot of times that sort of training support comes with it, or at an extra charge. But when you're talking about creating from scratch an application, software application, outside vendors, do they really understand all the nuances of the business? Can the users identify with them? And will they provide ongoing support? And that's probably a big no unless you're paying a lot of money. So there are many advantages of training an internal team of trainers. So if you develop your own internal team, and these don't have to be full-time trainers, they can have other jobs. Uh, they might be managers or directors or some type of managerial level, or just super users that double as trainers when they need to. But some of the advantages of having that internal training team is you minimize the loss of productivity associated with transitioning to a new piece of software. You minimize user error and subsequent data entry errors. You reduce support desk calls. You eliminate the paying of a third-party trainer by creating an in-house training team. And most of all, you reduce the user frustration and fears when you go live with the software. But before trainers can teach, they really need to understand how people learn. And people learn differently. That's the first thing that a trainer needs to understand. What works for one person may not work for another. We all use all of our senses to learn, but some do a better learning alone. Some do better learning in groups. I may be a hands-on learner, and you may do better reading on your own and slowly absorbing the material. We learn through repetition. We take in information and adapt it to our own sort of learning style or preference. And we relate to the material and the teacher based on past experiences, right? If you ever had a terrible teacher, you kind of might be turned off, to that type of environment completely and rather do it on your own. So effective communication is really the difference between a successful rollout, a less than successful rollout, and a total disaster, right? So for the trainer, when you're sort of going over this effective communication, you're really looking at three major things. You're looking at how they connect to the audience, getting their message across, and ensuring that the message that they are sending is being received correctly by the trainer. So, for most of us, effective communication is about connecting or engaging with people and then maintaining that engagement. And when you're trying to get your message across and maintain a level of engagement, it requires a variety of tools and techniques to do that. We send direct and indirect messages, each and every to each other every day, in written form, in verbal messages, in images, through our body language, whether it's conscious or unconscious gestures. And the trainer needs to be aware of these issues around sending that communication, things that could go wrong or things that they might not be aware of that they're doing. They may be talking too loud or too soft. Their speaking patterns might be too fast, really too fast. And we have a lot of experience with a lot of fast talkers. It may be too slow. It may be just totally monotone. There's no inflection, which would just put people to sleep. There could be a problem with using unfamiliar words. We've talked about this in the past. Language, abbreviation, slang that, people can't relate to. Maybe you're jumping around between subjects and there's no logical flow and people get confused. Maybe you're providing too much detail and not enough key or targeted information. Maybe you're going on too long, like I'm doing right now. It's sort of the difference between novels versus chapters, that law of diminishing returns. I don't know if you've ever heard this analogy of the law of diminishing. I heard years ago, diminishing returns. It's sort of like getting an ice cream cone and licking the ice cream cone, and you're like, oh my God, that tastes so good. And the first and the second, the third lick might not be as good as the first one. Things start to go numb, and it's not as tasty as that very first time that you lick that ice cream cone. So that's the law of diminishing returns. So if you go on too long, you sort of start to lose the audience. And I'm going on too long, so I'm going to move ahead. Okay. And as the trainer is trying to get their message across, They also need to be checking in that the trainee is actually receiving what they're putting out there. And there could be a lot of issues around that as well. The trainees may have an inexperience with the material or subject matter they're being taught, so they're trying to catch up. They might misinterpret information coming through. There's all kinds of distractions that could be going on. Cell phones, emails, and hopefully at the beginning of the training you make everybody shut all that stuff off. But there could also be side conversations going on that are very distracting, and those are some of the things trainers have to manage. There could be an inability for the trainee to really hone in on the message. Maybe too many people are talking at once. And if you've ever dialed into a remote conference call and everybody's talking, um, you know exactly what we mean. It's just like you cannot find a focus. You don't know what they're talking about. You're also dealing with users who are sort of bored. Maybe you've gone on too long again, and people are tired. They're just fatigued. Maybe they've worked all week, and now this is sort of their time to relax, unfortunately, and they might not be absorbing the information, or they're just getting it's too much information. That you have to pace this information out so that you're not overloading the trainee. So trainers need to be prepared for these different types of learners, the issues, the baggage that they bring in with them. They need to be able to identify situational challenges that they might encounter during training and provide the appropriate response back. And how do you help them with these type of issues? The old standby for everything we talk about and everything we do, and that is planning and preparation. So training should, begin long before the software release. In fact, planning and preparation should really begin in parallel with the stakeholder review of the requirements. Once you're getting that sort of review and sign off, you have a pretty good idea of where this is going. So you can really start to plan out how you're going to train this and how you're going to segment everything up. So that's definitely, you want to start that way ahead. And part of that starting way ahead and part of that process is creating a certain level of excitement. You've got to sort of hype up or market for several months before the launch, the actual software. The idea here is to get them thinking about this new system in a positive way, how it will help them. Send out multiple emails, spaced out, providing, fun facts or explain a key feature that solves a problem in each email. Do a countdown till the launch type of thing. Schedule a meeting with all of the users to walk them through the screen comps that you've created. And again, you're letting them know that this is going to be very close to what we're going to build, and we're just giving you a preview of it. And you can even do it closer to the time when a lot of the development might be completed already. So you can do, viable real-time screen comps, but do that, create that hype. It's sort of all about marketing. It's the same way you would go out and market a product to a client. You want to market it to the internal users. Another thing you can do is you want to do a pre-assessment. So we're selecting, or these trainers have been selected for you, whichever the case may be. You should at least assess their skills. Put a little survey out there. Who are these users? What are their roles? How long have they been with the company? What's their level of technical skill? Do they have any experience in training other people or experience in testing systems? Are they outgoing, attentive? Are they detail-oriented? Are they self-directed? That assessment will give you an idea of how much content you'll need to create for the trainers and how you will actually go about delivering the training. The third thing you want to do ahead of time is you want to create the content and the flow of the training program. And this is really where the rubber hits the road. This is where it's going to take a little bit more time. You're going to have a mix of tools and techniques that you're going to use. But when you're thinking about creating the content and the flow, Start with your end goal first. What is going to be the objective of the training? What is it you want them to learn or to understand? And what is their particular current skill level? What should they be able to do at the end of the training? So that's where you want to start, where they are today, where you need to get them. The content should be learner centric. We talk about user centric software. Well, you really want to create this content for the learners. So you kind of need to have a rough idea of the learner's background. So, what are the needs of the trainee in relationship to the goal that you're trying to attain? This will drive the customization of the content, the level of detail required in the content. You want to create a sort of task-oriented content and training. The step-by-step instructions are going to walk them through the system so they can get their job done. You want to list the key components and areas of focus and scenarios. You can't really cover every scenario. You just can't. And users, anyway, will adapt the training to the way they work. So just try to cover the positive path and focus on some potential scenarios that are more frequent than others. And the rest of the scenarios can be supplemental training in reference material that you hand out or they can get online. But you definitely walk them through what they need to do to complete their job and focus on those key areas. Once you have that sort of content lined up, you want to break it up into short, concise training modules. You have to have breaks in between. You just can't keep training from beginning to end. People just don't absorb information that way. It's overload. So break it up into modules and structure those training modules so that they replicate real case studies and scenarios. Don't train them on something that they're not going to use. They should be very specific so they can relate and actually use it in their day-to-day job when you roll out the system. So you want to provide interaction scenarios that reiterate the training that you're doing. And these scenarios and profiles should be role specific. You will use these during the hands-on training sessions. And when you're dealing with an application, you really need to have hands-on training, whether that's in some kind of test environment or some other format. But people need to be able to put their hands on it and make sure it's working for them. And create sample data. You're going to be creating sample data to be entered in those scenarios. I know it sounds like a lot of work. But it's well worth it, and people do really appreciate it. And you want the product to be a success, so you have to have the users be successful. So other content that you're going to create, obviously you're going to create some type of training manual that people can go back to and refer. I know training manuals get out of date, but initially you need to put it out there for training, and then you could update the information in an area online if need be. So you want to create a training manual for the trainees, showing them the flow, walking them through the functionality, step-by-step instructions, including a lot of visual cues so they can find things, and a troubleshooting section. You also want to create a training manual for the trainer. And that outlines the training course, key points, indicates when to use various tools or suggested various tools, troubleshooting section. And this isn't only on the software troubleshooting. We're talking about, if there's conflict resolution that they need, when they're training, different things come up, how to handle those type of scenarios. And then, of course, you need resource, sections, suggested activities to improve engagement, handouts, cheat sheets, links to videos, etc. So there's a lot of content being built. The good news is if you're dealing with someone who understands the business, they can help you create this training material. You don't have to do it all on your own. The next thing you want to do is you want to take that content and make sure that it flows. Know the flow before you begin. Organize all your key components in a logical, or sequential order. Don't bounce all around. Don't show them features here, features there, and it just confuses everybody and they don't retain that. Train the way they work so that they can actually use the system. Remember, you're creating this material to give the trainer the tools and the confidence they need to successfully train users. So ask yourself, would you sit through this training? Would it give you what you needed? And while we're on the subject of giving you what you needed, we're going to take a little break here. And we hope we're giving you what you need to become an excellent business analyst. And we want to say welcome to all our new subscribers and thank you all for the suggested comments that come across. We really appreciate your feedback. It gives us an opportunity to create sort of this shared experience. And we also want to invite everyone to sign up for our mailing list so you can be the first to find out about upcoming events, classes, free stuff. We collect minimal information. We don't use it anywhere except to inform you of what we're doing. And you can also like and follow us on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the little bell icon, and you'll be notified when we go live. So if you haven't already, please join our community and help us make it a place where we can give each other a hand, because that's what it's all about. That's what we think it's all about anyway, helping each other. Okay, let me just do a really quick check in with Kathleen, make sure everything's good on her end. And we're good. Thank you. Thank you. We are good. Nothing going on. Okay, so let's get back to the train the trainer. Once you've created your content and your flow, you have it flowing in a logical way, you're going to want to help the trainer select a training approach. We prefer sort of a blended approach. And what I mean by that is, this is sort of instructor-led, and you can do that via face-to-face or live webinars, mixed with hands-on, practical use training, interactive discussions and Q&A periods. So we don't like to lock ourselves into one approach. Not everyone learns the same way. So our approach shouldn't be always the same either. You'll have trainers who will need to modify to their teaching style to connect with everyone. And you may have trainees that are not all in the same place or at the same time. And you have to be really flexible in what approach you select. As well as the approach, you want to talk about the tools and the techniques. You want to mix up. We have a diverse set of tools and techniques out there to engage and keep them going, including, lecturing, which you want to kind of use minimally, right? Just to sort of provide an overview of information or explain steps. You may want to create predefined questions that sort of stimulate engagement and group discussion, and questions that touch on areas that might not be covered completely in the training. Again, you don't want to use questions a lot. Were you ever in a training class where the presenter just stood up there and asked questions that nobody answered, right? It takes you right back to grammar school. It's kind of boring. So be careful how you use that. If users are asking questions, involve the rest of the group in responding. Can anyone answer that, or would anybody like to add to that, so that they begin to trust each other? Because when you leave, these trainers are depending on each other to make sure that they can do what has to be done. You use discussion groups and discussion boards. You need to be able to confirm that the user is understanding the content the way you're presenting it. And it also can identify misunderstandings and provide clarification for future training materials. You can use overheads, handouts, use the whiteboard to clarify, direct, or support training. We use videos, sort of gives the trainer a break and provides that ability to standardize the delivery of certain instructions. Or you could do self-paced videos. They're not all that hard to do, and there's plenty of different software out there that you can use to do that. You want to do some testing, so you make sure people are picking up on the information you're putting out there, especially in the hands-on type of training practice. And again, hands-on training, learn through doing, make sure you use that. Now, there's also activities. You'll see a lot of activities out there. I know you've been to a lot of training classes. Kathleen and I are kind of jaded when it comes to creating these activities. But, activities, are they keep people alert, they keep people engaged, and people do learn to a certain degree through entertainment, as long as you make it, make the activities relevant. And they're also good for fillers for, the overachiever, who finishes early with the hands-on practice. There's things that you can put there in different scenarios. Again, read the crowd. If you're talking to a bunch of programmers, they may not be interested in these sort of activities. They seem to all be jaded as well. But again, a lot of people do like them. So, as in all things, also have a backup plan in case technology bombs. You always have to have printed materials. If you're going somewhere, you can have those materials and training manuals shipped before you get there, so that you don't have to haul them into a building up to the 54th floor. So definitely have a backup plan for all that. One of the main things that you want to do, as we said in our show last week, which was about demoing to clients, you want to practice, 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 and rehearse. This is the trainers that we're talking about now, and trainers should, practice role playing with each other during the training and after, have the trainers tape themselves, with their cell phone, and do a self-assessment so that they can see their progress and make sure that they can actually finish the training in the time that they're allotted. These trainings don't go on forever. There's a certain time limit. Okay, and then we get to the actual delivering the training program. And what I like to do, I do start off with an activity. My go-to activity usually is, now, in most cases, they call these icebreakers, right? But they serve a really good purpose. So I take a 5-minute icebreaker and I get them all talking, as I did in the beginning, when we were on the pre-show before, talking about their experiences with a bad training program, and everybody's had them. So, list what are the bad qualities? What can you do differently? What are some of the things that can go wrong? And how could these things have been avoided? And trainers will need to anticipate issues by being prepared and be able to calmly respond and deal with these unanticipated things. So it helps point out what they should and should not be doing. And it also sort of gets everybody talking and relaxes people and gets them engaged. That's as far as the icebreakers go. We've done other ones in the past when we used to have, a week to train. Today's day, in this day and age, you don't have a lot of time to train. But that is a really good icebreaker just to keep people talking and starting to think about it. Then I typically provide an overview of why they're there, a quick review of the lesson modules, the schedule, and how we're going to approach it. The overview gives them some context around what they're going to be seeing, and you want to do that. And again, you want to keep it high level, and it lets people know what to expect. That's sort of why we're here. From there, just go into a high level overview. And this could be with multiple roles in the room. There's multiple people. You're just going over the key features and the functionalities, the flow of the system. This can be done in a demo, whether it's pre-recorded or live, or a screen cap walkthrough, whatever you have available to you. And following that high level overview, if there are multiple roles that are being trained in the room, this is the point where you would want to separate them out in order to train them on their own specific functionality. So hopefully you have a wing person or a co-pilot to help you through this. It's always helpful to have more than one person involved and train the trainer. And then you want to begin your training, right? You want to start with module 1. You want to review the goals of the module. You can do that with an overhead, a bulleted list. You can put it up on the whiteboard. You want to provide the details in the form of a lecture. Maybe you have user flow diagrams or you're drawing on the whiteboard. You want to keep it short and concise and interesting. That's really hard to do sometimes. Try to do it with a little humor. Try to keep their attention. Keep moving around the room so that their eyes have something, to follow to keep them awake. Give them handouts of the training material for that specific module. Or if you have a small manual, direct them to the page that you're working on. After you give that information and that demo, allow the user to practice hands-on. Give them a practice scenario, display a cheat sheet or with key instructions or information so they can follow it. Give them sample data to enter that is relevant to their job. Make sure you're adding in data that makes sense to them. And give them the ability to interact with functionality in a test environment or some type of simulated interface. And let them know who they can flag down for help or to answer questions, which is usually you, the BA, at this point. Um, and then provide support during that hands-on practice session. Walk around, observe people. If you can, if you're in person, if you're online, pay attention to body language. Are they lost? Are they frustrated? Are they confused? Are they asking someone next to them a lot of questions? Encourage them to provide feedback or ask questions. It gives you the information you didn't know, and it makes the trainer feel like they are contributing to the solution. They're now vested in that overall outcome of the training because they're helping you and you're helping each other. And if multiple users are having the same issue, stop for a second and provide direction to the entire group. And after you do the training, at the end of each module, you want to sort of summarize the module, again, stating key points maybe in an overhead, and then getting feedback. Does it work? What do we think we need to change or refocus? So let the group take a little 5 minutes to discuss and bring up points. And again, it engages people. At the end of all the training for Train the Trainer, you're going to have to provide, or you should provide, an assessment if you've ever been in a training program before, you sort of assess the trainer and then you assess the actual program. It seems like it's a pain in the butt, but actually it gives feedback to the trainer of what they need to change and what needs to change in the program, what's not working. And most of the time it's anonymous, so people feel a little more comfortable about filling that out. All said and done, once you finish the trainer, make sure you have post-rollout support available, right? Provide at least 3 days of support where you have multiple meetings set up for people to come together to discuss and pose questions that you can then answer. And then once or twice a week after that for a few weeks. Have the trainers identify and set up a buddy support system for users. Let the users know which trainer they need to go to or who they should go to get answers, for the first month or so. And provide self-service resources to enable trainees to view the skills that they've learned, obtain updated cheat sheets, Q&A, etc. Right? So all of these things will help make for a very successful Train the Trainer program. So some of the tips, and I know I'm running a little late tonight, 8:31, but some of the Train the Trainer tips, okay, begin the training preparation in parallel with the requirements review. Define and set your training goals and objectives. Create the content and break it down into smaller modules that have a logical flow. Create a plan and follow it. Deviate from the plan if you have to, but then get back on track as soon as you can and use notes. Have you ever been to a restaurant where the waitress or the wait staff comes over and they don't write down your order on a pad? They're committing it to memory. I don't know why management thinks this is so impressive, because it's not. What is impressive is if they can get the darn order right in the first place, right? So, that I like. So use notes, follow your plan, use notes. As a trainer, you need to explain your role to the trainees. What is your process? Why are you there? So make sure you do that. Use humor, activities, varied tools and techniques to keep people engaged and to satisfy individual learning styles and preferences. Create questions and facilitate discussion groups to confirm the users are learning and to stimulate conversations, suggestions, or training improvements. Provide hands-on Most important, provide hands-on practice. If it's an application, absolutely. And pilot the train the trainer sessions as a prerequisite to the user acceptance testing, or as part of explaining what they need to test in the user. It works out really well. And it identifies right away common questions that might be asked, and it gives you time to optimize your training materials. So really pilot that with the trainers, either right before user acceptance testing or as part of user acceptance testing. You'll get instant feedback, which is terrific. Make sure you solicit that feedback, and make sure that you take unsolicited feedback graciously. They're just trying to help here. They're not trying to slam you in any way. So you got to have a little bit of a thicker skin for a train the trainer, or even the BA training the trainer. And encourage them to practice with each other, tape themselves, as a way to improve their delivery and for the training itself, and leave them with gifts. Leave them with gifts in the form of your cheat sheets, slides, troubleshooting guides related to business flows, handling certain situations, handling certain personalities, and train the trainer instruction manuals and the trainee manuals. Okay. So that, before we wrap up, we'd like to leave you with a little something. And that's where you can find us. If Kathleen wants to put up that slide, you can find us at thebazone.com. That's our website. And you can certainly leave suggestions and comments there for future shows. You can find us on Twitter at thebazone, Instagram.com/thebazone, Periscope.tv/thebazone, Facebook.com/thebazone, and YouTube.com/thebazone. And again, drop us a line. Okay, that about wraps up our show for tonight. Let me just check with Kathleen. Okay. Yes, this is for all you folks that think this is a recording. This is not a recording right now. This is definitely live. It will be a recording later. And we will post it up for you in case you miss it or want to go back to it. Okay, that about wraps up our show for tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show, which gives you a recipe to create a successful Train the Trainer program. But remember, like any good recipe, there's always room for improvement and creativity. So make it your own. Take it up to the next level. Are you receiving what I'm sending? Yeah, I thought so. I'll work on that if you're not. So anyway, have a great night, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the BA Zone Live. Take care, everyone.